Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting. I am Councillor Ron, and Chair of the committee. There are no scheduled drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm, please leave the building via the spiral staircase and the main reception door. Once outside, please turn left onto Exchange Road. If you are unable to use the stairs, you will be guided to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the Council's YouTube channel. The comment function is not available. The Council is a data controller and will retain the data collected during the webcast in accordance with this data retention policy. Anyone seated in the public gallery during the webcast Anyone sitting in the public gallery should be aware that by entering the room, you are consenting to your image being captured by the automated camera system. Recordings will be used for webcasting or training purposes. The meeting agenda is available on the Council's website. Around these tables sit the committee members who will be taking decisions on the items before them. Officers of the Council are also in attendance, and I invite them to introduce themselves, starting with the officer on my left.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Heather Girling. I'm Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening. Siraj Chowdhury, Head of Governance.
Good evening. Clem Smith, Head of Economy and Planning.
Good evening. I'm Mark Robinson, Principal Planning Officer.
Thank you. Item 1 is apologies for absence. Are there any apologies?
Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Mangali.
Thank you, Heather. So item 2 is disclosures of interest, and item 3 is lobbying declarations, which we will take together. I will now hand over to the Democratic Services Officer.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I will call committee members' names one by one. If you can kindly declare any interests, including the nature of any interests, lobbying or site visits in relation to any of the items, please. And we'll start with Councillor Adney.
I've got no interest to declare. I've not visited any of the sites and I've not been lobbied. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bidwell, please.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare, haven't visited the site and haven't been lobbied.
Councillor Chariton, sorry.
Get myself prepared. Apologies for slight lateness, usual reason. I have no interest to declare, I haven't been lobbied, and I have not had an opportunity to visit any of the sites.
Councillor Crowe.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a 0 from me on all 3 counts.
Thank you. Councillor Hart. Councillor Jaggard, please.
Good evening. I've no interest to declare. I've not been lobbied. I had a very interesting officer-led site visit for item 5. Thank you.
Councillor Khan, please.
Good evening. I've got no interest to declare. I've not been lobbied and I've not visited any sites.
Councillor Mullins.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare. I haven't been lobbied and I haven't visited the sites, although I know them well.
And Councillor Patel.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare. I have not visited the sites and have not been lobbied. Thank you.
And finally, Councillor Varner.
Thank you. I have no interest to declare, and I have visited the site, referring to item 5. Thank you. Item 4 is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting held on 26 August 2025.
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask for further clarification from Councillor Hart? Your non-prejudicial interest.
I've lived opposite the tree for 23 years.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Item 4 is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting held on 26 August 2025. Does the committee agree that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Thank you. We will now move on to item agenda 5, planning application CR/2024/0472/LBC-49 to 51 High Street, Northgate. Please can the planning officer report the meeting? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd first like to alter the recommendation. So we've had a response back from Historic England to the consultation, statutory consultation is required. They have responded that they have no comments to make and that the local planning authority deal with it using our own heritage advice. So the recommendation now is to grant consent. It is not to delegate it to the head of economy and planning. So that's a change. In other respects, the recommendation hasn't altered. So there's an image of the building on the screen there, which I think most people know on the High Street, quite an important building in the town. So this is a Grade 2. This is a council-owned Grade 2 star listed building on the east side of the High Street. Specific details relating to the listed building description and the extent of works proposed are set out in the report in quite some detail, and I don't intend to go over those. There's an even longer description in the specification and methodology of work, which is included with the application. This is the report's a précis of that. The building, although still in use, has fallen into condition that now requires a number of repairs. The proposed works are, as set out, as I say, in detail in the planning consideration section of the report, and they do include repairs to the roofs, chimney, external vendal panels, the external timber framing, the external brickwork, windows, doors. They also include internal repairs, in many cases due to sort of water damaged to walls, plasterwork and parts of the timber frame. In certain cases where the extent of the repair required is not known, and this is generally due to the requirement to remove material before we can assess the damage, it's proposed to allow these works to be undertaken to remove parts of the building and then assess what's done, so we can then sort out the required remediation, and that be agreed with the local planning authority before further works are then undertaken. So the building itself is more than special interest, being Grade 2 star, and therefore there are extensive details proposed relating to the materials and methodology. This has been undertaken, assessment of this has been undertaken in conjunction with the Council's heritage consultant, and they've agreed that the current proposed specification and methodology should be acceptable. It's therefore considered that the proposal would result in a significant improvement to both the appearance and the condition of this important building. And I'm going to show a few more plans. So it's outlined here on the right. Excuse me. So give you. So just to give an extent of some of the nature of the repairs, the areas that are outlined in red on this plan indicate where repairs are being proposed. This is the ground floor plan. It shows where there's repairs being undertaken internally to the building. The older part of the building is to the front here, where you can see the kind of timber framing indicated. The rear of the building here is a much more modern section, and in between these there's a Victorian section here, so the modern parts here. The building comprises two main elements. As I say, there's a restaurant, which is about the top 2/3, and then there's a solicitor's office, which also includes the first floor around the bottom. So just to give some members an idea of some of the internal features and what it looks like. So this is the upper floor of the solicitor's office, and you can see the exposed timber framing. the buildings like this, in most places, it's older parts. The images on the right just show really where some of the damage has occurred. So we've both got filler up here, which is a window frame, and then you can see the condition of the wall below. So this is one of the parts on the first floor that's going to need to be removed, investigated to work out what needs to be done to it. The lower image here is the front doorway, and the thing that's trying to show is actually these white areas which show where you can actually see daylight through the building, where it's really been deteriorating over time. A couple more images. So this is some water damage here on the ground floor. This is in the solicitor office. This is just an indication of some of the windows, the leaded frame windows that are due to be repaired as well. And again, you can see there's been a repair. The wood here is quite rotten. It's been repaired with timber. These are kind of indicative of a number of the different repairs around the building that need work and need attending to. So on the front elevation, whilst it's not that clear, there's panels here. There's for example, there's a hardboard panel here, whereas the rest of the building is still rendered. This needs replacing. There's damage underneath the window that needs replacing. The sole plate, which is the large part of timber framing along the base here, is also deteriorating and is needing quite significant work to it, as well as repairs to the windows. The roof appears to be in fairly good condition, but it's going to be checked over, and there's going to be things like repointing the brickwork and putting new chimney pots on it. So just a little run through what's been proposed. There's much more detail in the report, and the recommendation is therefore now to grant consent subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob, for your very detailed presentation. There is one speaker registered in regard to this matter. Please will Councillor Jones please come to the speaker's table. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking to the committee tonight in support of this application because this is an important thing to do for this beautiful and historic building, as well as maintaining and enhancing the appearance of the High Street. The Ancient Priors is a medieval timber-framed building, as Mark said, dating back to 1450. It is one of the oldest buildings in the south of England. The property is Grade 2 listed. It is almost unique also as being the only retail or hospitality unit in the town centre that the council owns itself. The building was purchased by CBC in 2016, with Ask Restaurants having a lease of the whole and providing a good income. However, the restaurant did not survive the pandemic, and CBC became responsible for the building and its repair and maintenance at this time. In order to protect the building for future generations, it is necessary to carry out a programme of repairs to the structure and fabric of the property. The programme of work is extensive and will include careful repair and restoration. But I can assure councillors that the work is to be carried out by specialist contractors having a very good knowledge of medieval timber frame buildings, using traditional methods and materials to ensure that the appearance of the property is not altered and we stay faithful to its original design and build. Once completed, the council will have restored one of the West Sussex's most important historical properties back to its full splendour for the next 500 years, hopefully. It is considered that the works proposed are comprehensive and would be sympathetic to this particularly important building of more than special interest. The works will result in improvements to the historic and architectural character of the building and indeed the area, and that will therefore comply with local plan policies and the Planning Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990. Our heritage assets policy says proposals should seek to ensure that heritage assets, key features or significance are conserved and enhanced as a result of development. I submit that this application complies with the policy. Our local plan policy HA4, listed buildings and structures, says any proposed works to them are consistent with the character, appearance and heritage interest of any statutory listed building structure in line with national legislation, policy and guidance. Any changes must preserve or enhance the design and character of the listed building and have regard to its historic and architectural significance. I also submit, Chair, this application complies with the policy. For the reasons outlined, I very much hope the committee will approve this application from the council tonight so we can give this building the love it needs to keep it in the good condition that it deserves for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. We will now move on to the debate. Committee members should raise their hands if they wish to speak. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Yes, Councillor Mullins.
Thank you. This is a very special building, as just been said. It's of great historical value to Crawley. There's not a lot of old Crawley left, but there are bits and pieces, and those pieces that we still have, we need to protect and look after. It's also, I think, a very much loved building and very well known in the area. It's part of Crawley and has been part of Crawley since before, well, as we just said, back in 1400 and something. It was probably there before then, or another building like it was there. So I think it's really important that we take care of it, because we have a duty of a care as a council to make sure that these buildings are protected and looked after for future generations to enjoy. I'm really pleased to hear that we're going to have properly experienced and specialist work people coming in to do the work for us, because it's really important that we don't just do a bodge job, that we do a proper job on it to make sure that it lasts for a good long time after this. I realise that this sort of work is not cheap. It comes at quite an expensive level, but quality always costs. So I'm delighted to support this recommendation, because I think this is a very important part of Crawley that we need to protect and look after. The one question I would ask is, I hope everything's going to be photographed and catalogued as to what we're doing and what we find, because it might be quite interesting. And also, will we have any connection with Crawley College and maybe their building people, that they might be interested in some of their apprentices maybe coming along to see how buildings were built so far back in the past. I realise there's not really anything to do with planning, but I think it could be quite useful and quite interesting.
Thank you, Councillor Mullins. I will let Mark Robinson answer your question.
That's lovely. Thank you, Chair. There is a requirement actually to record things as they're going through, and there's a sort of informative there, and it also forms part of the specification for those works to be undertaken. So I can't answer the Crawley College question, but there is certainly, so particularly where we don't know what's there, we might have to take things apart and then assess it. All of that will then have to come into the local planning authority, and we'll keep a record of it as well. So yes, there will be elements of that. In most cases, you can actually see the damage, and we know what needs doing, and I've taken some pictures and things, but yeah, there's a part of it requires, I think, quite comprehensive recording in accordance with sort of West Sussex County Council and Historic England guidance. So I hope that helps. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think it will also be of great interest to a lot of people who live in Crawley as to what's going on and what we're doing and why we're doing it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jack.
Thank you. I think my question has just been answered, actually. I had a really nice visit. We went all over the building. You accompanied me as well. So it was fascinating. And it was so disappointing to see how much deterioration there was in the building. And I'm surprised that we've owned the building since 2016, and that's coming up for 10 years now. And much of that disrepair must have happened in the last few years. So that was a little bit disappointing. My question was going to be about the specialist contractors, which I raised at the time of our site visit. So that's good to hear that we are employing specialists for this work. And I wondered, and I think Mr. Robinson just touched on it, about contingency. If when we take off the not plasterboard, I can't remember what you said it was now, the boards and things like that have been covering up the bad stuff underneath, do we have contingency plans? And presumably if we find something underneath when we take things down, are we in a position to do further work rather than leave the site and then come back again later? How does that work?
Thank you very much. Yes, the methodology and specification clearly sets out where investigative work is going to be undertaken. They're then, that information is then provided to the local planning authority, so back to the council. And in conjunction with our heritage consultant, we will assess that with whatever recommendations made as to the acceptability of the repairs that are going to be undertaken. The whole thing is set up to enable that to happen rather than having to submit another application and another application, because that would just add potentially unnecessary delay and leave things exposed and cause a delay in terms of taking the building and restoring it in the future. I think that just in relation to some of the damage that's occurred, it does appear that I can say it was the damage has been rather longer term and not the things that have caused the damage probably due to things that weren't undertaken quite some time ago, rather than recent works. Recent works by the council have actually made the building watertight and prevented further water damage, and this is a stage moving on from that to actually right things that have occurred some time ago. There's just if I'm showing an image, there was this particular timber work here, which is on the upper floor. I visited this a little while ago in relation to see what emergency repairs could be undertaken with the council, and some of the oak framing, because it had been damaged for a long time, you could actually squeeze it. It was like a sponge. So it had a significant length of time of the water ingress into the building, but the council have made efforts when kind of aware of this to try and fix that immediate problem. And this is more connected, I think, when the council took the ownership back off of the previous leasee, who I think also had a contract to maintain the building. But that's not something for local planning authority. But I just like hasten to add, this is not a thing that's happened in the last couple of years. It goes back a bit further. Thanks.
No, thank you. It was more the contingency, because I know how expensive, a sudden discovery could be behind some plasterboard or behind that metal door that was there. We don't necessarily know what we're going to find, and going back on site at a later date is always much more costly, and if something can be done in a timely fashion, it saves a lot in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jaggard, and thank you, Mark Robinson. Do any other members have any queries, any comments or anything? No? So I'd just like to add something myself. So I have always passed the building in the town centre because I live quite close by, and I always knew it was Tudor, but I didn't realise it was so old, up to 500, 600 years old. And when I saw it close up, I was really astonished. You appreciate the beauty and the glory of the era that's gone by, how beautiful it is from inside. Even outside it's really, really beautiful. And I'm really greatly in favour of the extensive work that needs to be done for it, and hopefully to preserve the building for many, many generations to come. Thank you. As we don't have any other speakers, we will now move on to the vote. The recommendation is to grant consent, noting the change of the recommendation as proposed. As a chair, I will move the recommendation as amended. Can I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
I second the recommendation.
Thank you. Please, may I have a show of hands for all those for? Thank you. All those against? And all those abstaining? Thank you. Application CR/2024/0472/LBC has been granted consent. Now we will move on to agenda item 6, tree preservation order application adjacent to 3 Horndean Close, Pound Hill. Please, can the planning officer introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. So consent is sought here for an oak tree which is indicated by the red arrow on the drawing here, which is just by the garage of this house. due to subsidence damage to number 4, Horndean Close, which is this building here. The tree is in the influencing zone of the building, and there's clear evidence of subsidence damage to the extension. And I'll show, I'm afraid it's not very clear on the bricks, but you can certainly see quite significant cracks that are in the inside of the building on these images on the right-hand side here. Right, there are cracks in the wall, but it doesn't come across very clearly just because of the colour and the nature of the cracks and everything else. It's very likely, therefore, that the tree is either the cause or is a contributory factor to subsidence of the building. The drains have been checked. There's no issue with those. We found there were oak roots found in trial pits erected by the building. The oak tree itself, they're renowned to be a high water demand species. Therefore, they can result in quite a lot of movement, particularly in clay soils. In this particular instance, therefore, recommended that the tree be felled and replaced with a lower water demand species, such as a hornbeam, and this would should help subsidise the subsidence movement, and it would prevent any future issues with the tree causing further movement. So the recommendation is to set out in the report. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark. There are no speakers registered in regard to this item, so we will move on to the debate. Do any other committee members wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Mullins.
Just one question. Removing such an enormous tree, is that going to cause more damage to the property in question? I realise it's going to be replaced with another tree, but it's going to make a fairly big change, isn't it?
Yes. So the removal of trees can result in heave. So you can get a movement the other way as well. But if you don't remove the tree, then potentially what you have is an ongoing situation which gets worse, where the oak takes more water over time and you get more movement. If you don't have the oak there, then what can happen is it's much more likely you might get some movement, but then you might get more stabilisation as well. So because the tree is, because of where the tree is and the evidence that we've got, it certainly looks like it's implicated. Removing the tree should help stabilise it, result in a requirement for a lower level of repair works than if maybe the tree was retained and the issue got worse over time. So in that respect, whilst we don't wish to see the tree moved, I suppose I better point out it's the slightly smaller one at the front here, not the two big ones at the back. So but it is still a nice tree with high amenity and an expected lifespan of over 100 years. But in the circumstances that we've got, it is quite close. So if I show you the location of the tree, it is quite close to the building. So we've got it here and the building's here. So it is the closest tree, it's most likely to be implicated. So on this basis, we think that it's better to remove the tree and put something in that's going to have less impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. If you'd like to speak, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. I mean, I don't think any of us are comfortable with the felling of a prize oak tree. If it has to be, it has to be. There are a couple of questions I have. First question is, have alternatives looked at other than felling? So, for example, cropping, reducing the crown. Would that make any difference? Would that help? More to the point, has the option been explored, and does that make sense? Secondly, I'm interested to see that, at least according to the plan there, the tree is actually closer to another building, if you like, to the north, and yet that's not experiencing problems. Yet the one that's experiencing problems seems to be a fair distance away from the tree relative to the other building. So I'm wondering why. I'm wondering that you've curious to know why there haven't been issues with the tree, with the house right adjacent to the tree. In other words, are we talking? Do we really have the guilty party here?
Thank you. So, easier to answer the second question first. The movement that's occurring on the building is to an extension that was erected in 2001. So it should have building regulations and be compliant, and the movement is between the extension and the house itself. So there isn't an impact on the building that's closer because there isn't the extension that's being affected. So basically, the tree is moving something on that other building, and that's. Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Whereas the other house has got its own concrete base, and the roots are not having the same impact.
That's right. So so the difference is you've got the main base of the house, and that kind of moves together. You've got the extension, which is moving slightly differently to the rest of the house, and the evidence is that it's connected with water uptake. Connected, we found the roots there. There's definitely a tree in the influencing area. And there is evidence of the movement that's sort of associated with cyclical movement you get, although it's not wholly conclusive on that. So that's the report actually sets that out. But the tree is definitely an influencing area. We could not turn around and say that the tree is not causing the problem. There isn't anything else that shows that there's a problem apart from really the trees and the roots and everything else that we've got, and therefore the tree. We think the tree is implicated in this. And that's the difference between the two buildings, that it's due to some. Given the extension was in 2001, and it's been sort of 25 years on, of course, trees grow, roots extend, things happen over time. The evidence we've got that the tree is part of the cause. There isn't actually evidence that sort of cutting back crowns and things makes long-term difference to these. You still get the water uptake and you'll still get the movement. So other things haven't been considered. We've got an application to fell the tree. That's what we're assessing it on. The evidence that we've got is the tree is in the influencing range, is likely to be, it's certainly going to be a contributory factor whatever happens, and therefore the recommendation is to remove the tree. Potentially otherwise, there'd be much higher costs to repair the extension and those sorts of things. So, yeah, I'm afraid the recommendation is as it's set out. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Julian, for your question. Next is Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. It's very sad to have a big oak tree like that felled. And I have listened to what's been said, and I do share Councillor Chariton's concern, because on here there looks like a little pink building underneath the tree on that plan, which is much nearer to the tree than the house. So I'm not quite sure what that little pink building is there. Maybe a garage, don't know. My question was, when the new hornbeam tree is going to be planted in the next 12 months as a replacement, whereabouts is that going to be in that band of trees but further away from the actual dwellings, or can it be anywhere? Have we got any idea where that might be?
So to answer the first question, yes, there is a garage there, and again that's not connected to anything else, so so it's relatively stable. We don't have evidence of there being damage to that, but we certainly do on the house. In relation to the hornbeam, it's to be planted as close as possible to where the original oak was removed from. So I can't tell you the exact location, but it will be in the line of trees there and close to the location. So hornbeams over time do provide quite a good amenity, but they take up a lot less water, much lower water demand species, so you shouldn't have ongoing problems in the future. We quite regularly, when we have removal of oaks and things which are high water demand in urban areas close to buildings, we quite regularly look at hornbeams as a replacement because they're more suitable, and they also have quite good amenity over time. So.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Crowe, for your question.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My question follows on actually from what Mr Robinson was saying, his answer to Councillor Chariton's question. And I'm just going to read out paragraph 2.2 on page 21. And it says, the justification provided for the felling of the tree is that it's causing subsistence damage to the extension at 4 Horndean Close, which is located to the west of the tree. And then crucially, it says there is no planning history to indicate when this extension was built. However, in aerial photographs, the extension was present in 2001. So that begs the question to me, is this the right application in terms of felling the tree, or should it be an application seeking retrospective planning permission for the extension?
Thank you, Chair. There's two answers to that question. So if it was there in 2001, it's effectively immune from any enforcement action because we only had 4 years to take any action. So it is lawful through the passage of time. And the second thing is that there's not even, it may not have even required planning permission in the first instance because it's an extension to the side of the building. If it complied with the permitted development rights, which at that time would have been 70 cubic metres, I think, or 110, depending on the house, then it probably wouldn't have required permission. It would have required building regulation approval, and I'm sure, but we won't have records of that as a local planning authority. But no, we can't. The extension is lawful, and we can't require an application or do anything about the extension. So therefore, we can only assess effectively what the tree might be doing to the building, and then we have to make that judgment as to, well, we have to alleviate the issue with the subsidence, and if the tree is implicated, then unfortunately we will generally remove the tree. There's not another option. So
can I just come back, Chair, if I may? Thank you. No, thank you for that explanation around the passage of time. And I appreciate we cannot turn back the clock, but if we were to turn back the clock and we were looking at a planning application, someone could well, for an extension for that property, someone could well be saying, well, could the tree cause an impact in future years? But I appreciate we are where we are, and the application before us is around felling the tree. And although some members might feel a little bit uncomfortable about how we've actually got here, if you see what I mean, but on balance, I think that the tree is probably going to need to go, unfortunately. But I do remain a little bit uncomfortable about the fact that well, maybe the owners weren't the present owners in 2000. I don't know, but it just strikes me as somewhat odd that the history of the extension doesn't seem to be known exactly. Thank you.
Can I just briefly respond to that? You're quite right, actually. So if planning permission had been required for this, we would have looked at the relationship to the tree and everything else. But if it is permitted development, which, looking at the size of it, there's a strong possibility it would have been at the time, then there isn't assessment there. People can do it, provided there's kind of no harm to the tree, which there is no harm to the tree from the extension, and so therefore they haven't damaged the tree even back then. So we wouldn't be looking to prosecute someone for putting an extension that doesn't cause any harm. It's just sometimes, these things happen where you have trees, particularly in an urban setting, where they grow over time, and then they became maybe a little bit too large for where they are, and they start to impact on things that they wouldn't have impacted upon when they were much younger. And what we have here is evidence really that there's a tree that's been growing over time, and the roots are now closer to this, and they're causing damage to the building. So if the extension was there in 2001 and it's only 2024 the applications come in, we probably haven't had any damage to it for 23 years, and it is indicative that something has happened. And the thing here with the tree being so close, being a high water demand, and the roots being there, generally indicate that the tree's at least got some impact on what's been going on. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you very much, Councillor Crowe, for a very interesting question. So are there any other members who wish to ask a question or query? No? So we will now move on to the vote. The recommendation is to consent. As the Chair, I will move the recommendation. May I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
I second the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bidwell. Please, can I have a show of hands for all those for? All those against? And all those abstaining? Oh, again, oh, God, sorry. Against. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jaggard. Application CR/2024-0326/TPO has been granted consent. So item number 7 is now, agenda number 7 is another tree preservation order application at 101 Ifield Drive, Ifield. Please can the planning officer introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid this is another application to fell a protected tree. The circumstances here are quite different to the one that we've had before. As you can see from the photographs here, it's located in the front garden of 101 Ifield Drive. You can see from the photographs, actually probably the easiest way to show it, the tree is in decline. It's got a very poor canopy on it now with little, by the way, of leaf cover. There are likely to be increasing issues with the tree, dead wood, falling dead wood as the tree retrenches. The estimate is it's probably got a lifespan of less than 10 years. It's therefore considered that felling the tree, replacing it with another, would result in a tree with a greater future amenity and would reduce the negative impact on public safety that might result from this tree felling over time. So the recommendation again, I'm afraid, is to fell this tree and then replace it, in this case, with an oak, not a hornbeam. Thanks. So the recommendation is set out in the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. There are no speakers registered in regard to this item, so we will move on to the debate. Do any committee members wish to speak? Please raise your hand. Councillor Chariton, first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the obvious question is: do we know the, no pun intended, root cause of the of the problem with the tree? I presume this is not something that can be remedied. I'm wondering why. I mean, I know. Apart from it being knackered, do we know what the problem is? I presume we've again looked at other things to do with it. Rather than going straight to felling, we've considered that it's in such a state it's not recoverable. And I'm just wondering if we understand why it's got into that state. And for other purposes, if we understand why, whether we are therefore be able to determine whether it's definitely not able to remediate it, as opposed to fell it, if you see what I mean.
Okay, so we don't know the exact reasons why the tree is retrenching and why it's reducing in amenity, but the tree officer has looked at the tree over time. It had a reduction some time ago. It then put a very good growth on afterwards, and then it's declined in time after that. So it wasn't connected with the previous works. It appears that the tree is just failing, and this can happen with trees. Again, he doesn't consider our tree officer does not consider this tree is going to recover because of what's happened and the way it's declining and the level of dead wood that we've got here. So it's not putting out a significant amount of additional growth. Sometimes when trees are under stress, they put growth out to alleviate that, and there may be ways of addressing it, but not in this particular instance. So this is why the recommendation in this particular instance is to alleviate the concerns that are going to happen, that as it reduces more, we might end up with dead wood and things falling on people. And the amenity is so reduced by the canopy and by, from what it was, is so reduced that a new tree over time should grow and actually replace that and be much more attractive and provide much more amenity to the street and the area than the tree does at the moment.
Can I come up with a supplementary question to that? Because it obviously, you mentioning that it had some reduction work which did result in growth afterwards, and obviously we have to trust the advice of the expert, so to speak. But I'm curious about that. Why the previous evidence was with some, as it were, judicious pruning, it actually did grow. but now we're considering actually that's not likely to happen again.
So the decline has been since 2012. So it's been 12 years of... So the works weren't undertaken very recently. And again, yeah, it's in long-term decline rather than a short-term. So we do have works undertaken, and sometimes as they then grow back. But in this particular case, no, it has been a more gradual decline of the tree. And the tree officer's view is definitely that undertaking works won't result in sort of improving it in this particular case. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Mullins, please.
Thank you. I must admit the tree does look rather sorry for itself, doesn't it? It looks a bit tatty, to say the least. As it's in a private front garden, is there any issue with the owner of the house having the tree taken down and replaced with a different tree? And how big would the new tree that's going to be put in be? Because oaks are quite slow growing.
So it's council. I think this is a council house. It's a council application. So we've made it so that I think we're in control of what's going on with this rather than the owners. The replacement tree is a British Standard Nursery stock specification. It's not a particularly significant tree, but they are quite robust, sort of smaller trees rather than. So we wouldn't expect there, as you said, to be an immediate replacement of the amenity of the tree. It will be something over time.
Thank you. Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you, Chair. Just two questions from me. Firstly, do we know the age of the tree? Because I couldn't see that in the report. And secondly, since 2012, is this the first time we've become aware that the tree has been in this condition?
I'm afraid I don't know the age of the tree, but looking at the size of it, I would say probably about at least 80 years old. Just from the size of the trunk and everything else, it's going to be that sort of age. I'm afraid you're right, it doesn't say it in the report, and we would normally have that in there. So what effectively has happened is that I think the tree officer's probably looked at Google Street View and things like that, and then actually gone through the photographs, and that's why he's identified that it's been in decline since 2012. So he says it's from desktop evidence available. So the council wouldn't necessarily have been thinking, oh, it needs replacing at that time, but the evidence just shows that it's been in decline, and now we've got this application. Particularly when you see from the photographs the amount of dead wood, you can see all the sticks that are out. Even if you've got dead wood, things are starting to fall off of it on a more regular basis, and it becomes more obvious. It may well be that the people in the house have reported this, and it's been assessed, and therefore the council have looked at it and thought, okay, we're a bit concerned about it, those sorts of things. It isn't getting better, and therefore we've had the application to remove it. Sorry, thanks.
And I'm sorry, I'm no expert when it comes to trees, but how old do these sort of this particular one, does it tend to sort of last on average?
Now that's a good question, because oak trees can last for a very long time. So it could be 350 years in the right place. They can be very long lived, but in other cases they may live for a shorter period of time. Trees in areas of stress, sort of sometimes in urban areas, tend to live less than trees in sort of other areas. But yes, they can be quite long lived. Yeah. So and again, in this particular instance, the tree officer's estimated that it's probably got less than 10 years left because of what's happening to it. So in the sort of scale of how long an oak could live, if this is 180 to 100 years old, then, well, it is a mature oak tree, but it's not as long lived as, say, maybe some others. Thanks.
It's unfortunate. This is I guess what's happened to happen, but I think it's probably the right thing to do in that case.
Thank you, Councillor Bidwell, for your very good observations. Do any other members wish to ask a question? Any queries, comments? Okay, we will now move on to the vote. The recommendation is to consent. As the chair, I will move the recommendation. May I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
I second the recommendation.
Thank you. Please, can I have a show of hands for all those for? All those against? And all those abstaining? Thank you. Application CR/2025/0246/TPO has been granted consent. As there's no supplement agenda, there is no more business for the committee. The meeting is closed at 2021. Thank you everyone for coming out today, and have a rest of a nice evening for the rest of the evening, whatever.